All right, so it looks like we've had some people entering the room. Apologies for the delay. We started a little bit late. Part of that is because, unfortunately, I have had a family mild emergency arise and we'll have to be leaving. And so Katie Meilenbush, who you'll see here on your screen is Global Catholic Climate Movement, will be running the webinar today. I apologize for that, and for some of the questions about the rest of the program, feel free to reach out to me directly. But for those of you who just joined, feel free to start introducing yourselves in the chat box, as we often do, with your name and where you're from. We have a wonderful program today. This is our opportunity to hear from people who have been an animator before about what they are doing in their own communities. So thank you all for joining today. Feel free, as I mentioned, to introduce yourself in the chat box, as we often do. And I will leave you in Katie's capable hands. So thank you all.
Excellent. So we'll give that just a moment for everyone to enter who they are in that chat box. And we'll get started. So just a couple announcements before we move into the presentations for today. Again, as Marissa said, I'm Katie Meilenbush. I'm the Director of Development for GCCM. I'm thrilled to be with all of you today. This is the last of the formal 3 webinars, and today we'll hear from people who went through the program before and are now organizing in their communities, and instructions for what happens next. You can also reach out to Marissa directly after this if you have any questions, since she wasn't able to join. And of course, you can ask our presenters any questions as well. So let's get started here. Great. So I'd like to start with a prayer. So prayer for witness. Spirit of God, we have heard your call to share in building up the kingdom of God. Fill us with the desire to change ourselves and to change the world. Inflame our passion for justice into a commitment to address unjust laws and our social sins. Deepen our concern for our sisters and brothers suffering the burdens of poverty and exploitation and the consequences of global warming. Let us enthusiastically play our part in the mission of the Church in the modern world, banish any complacency in our hearts and minds. May we always act in the spirit of justice. May we envisage prayer and create a different sort of world filled with a renewed sense of solidarity and care. Enlivened by the Spirit, may we go forth in the peace of the Holy Spirit to love and serve the Lord. Amen. Excellent. Let me just minimize this here so you don't have to see that. Ooh. Okay. So as mentioned before, but just to go over again, we'll hear from others who have completed the Animators program. They have some great stories to share. We'll also learn how they're taking action in their communities, go over any questions that you may have, either that they can answer, myself, or of course Marissa, who, as mentioned, unfortunately won't be able to be with us in the call today. We'll also go over Earth Day campaigns and any upcoming events that we have to share. Great. So our speaker, Agnes Richards, is a Laudato Si animator in Canada, forming the GCCM-Canada chapter. It's very exciting. She's Climate Reality Leader 2015 and Laudato Si animator with GCCM 2017. Involved at Hamilton and on the, is it on the 350.org board, Agnes, or?
I was part of their organizing committee and chair of several of their subcommittees for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent. Part of the Citizens Climate Action Plan for Hamilton and speaker and workshop leader on Laudato Si. So welcome very much, Agnes. We'll get started with Agnes's presentation.
Thank you very much, Katie, and to Marissa for inviting me to speak to your new animators. You're on an exciting journey, all of you. I often discuss with people about the remarkable times that we find ourselves in, and there's enormous potential for major shifts in the way we humans view ourselves and our place in creation. Your training here with the Global Catholic Climate Movement puts you on the path of leadership in your communities. It's a gift. And know that the Holy Spirit is working through you and alongside of all of you. In Canada, many of our professional and faith-based meetings begin with a traditional land acknowledgement. So I will tell you about the land that I am on. My home, I'd like to acknowledge, is on the traditional lands of the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. The land around the Great Lakes is part of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement that binds the original First Nations to share the territory and protect the lands and waters within the agreement. Subsequent Indigenous nations and all newcomers have been invited to this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. So my first slide is as much a guide for me as for you, but I wanted to let you know as new animators that there's things that I've learned by trial and error that I'd like to pass on to you. And one of them is finding existing local faith-based resources. So many of you are not in the United States. The first source should always be what the Global Catholic Climate Movement has available to you. But when you're ready to go beyond that, finding things that are developed as close to home as possible will speak maybe with more local spirit when you're talking about things that are near you. Katie, if you can just move to the next slide there. So this is an example of what I began searching out in Canada. The Jesuit Forum has produced a number of wonderful workbooks that help guide people in a dialogue basis or forum to discover for themselves what they understand of the climate crisis, and then it guides them to learning more and going beyond what they individually understand by sharing what everyone in a group understands. And it's that group dynamic that really brings forth a lot of transformation. And I would expect, like many other localities, there are other groups that are working around climate change too. This Give It Up for the Earth is a Lenten campaign by the Citizens for Public Justice in Canada. For 2 or 3 years now, they've run a campaign asking the Canadian government to stop subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. And then the CD there was developed by a Canadian filmmaker, and it is a Canadian response to Laudato Si. And the filmmaker has interviewed many prominent Canadians, David Suzuki and Maud Barlow and others, and captured what they think about the encyclical. So that was a tool that was really helpful to me because it brought in major figures in Canadian culture that people trust and understand. And them talking about Laudato Si made it more accessible to the audiences that I was addressing. You can go to the next slide, Katie. I developed a PowerPoint of my own that is a synopsis of Laudato Si. It was about 25 slides, and I put in images that relate specifically to Canadian issues, but when I spoke, the only words that I spoke were direct quotes from Laudato Si. So I tied Laudato Si directly to what is happening on the ground in communities close to me. Detroit is not that far away from where I live here in Southern Ontario, so I included some slides from there. And by doing this, it helps my listeners develop a personal relationship to Laudato Si, because they can see that there are issues right here at home that need to be dealt with to address climate change and eco-justice for the people here. And then by extension, it will help the rest of the world without a doubt. So, one thing, if you can show the next slide. Oh, yes, this one. I always try and let people know the positive news too. So I've included in my slide deck, again, talking about Laudato Si, what people are doing. The welcoming of Syrian refugees, Lafayette Gardens in Detroit, where urban vegetable gardening has helped address food deserts in the urban setting. These are all extensions of what Pope Francis is talking about in Laudato Si. If you can show the next one, Katie. Pope Francis also in the encyclical points directly to Indigenous voices needing to be an important part, in fact, maybe even leader in how we address climate issues globally and locally. And again, I try to include Canadian content. The very bottom image is a healing walk around the tar sands. The top right corner, though, is Indigenous people in Brazil standing up for their rights against Canadian gold mining companies. So sometimes the reach of your own local effects on the earth don't stay local. You might have businesses that operate internationally that are causing problems too, and this can be addressed from your regional location as well. Another thing that I did, and this poster was designed with Hamilton 350, is in order to bring the climate crisis closer to home for people, and I have to say that in oftentimes people in Southern Ontario are still struggling with understanding the depth of the crisis, because here we're not nearly as severely affected as many other places in the world. So in order to help them understand, in this case, back in 2014, we tried to illustrate for people that iconic landscapes that Canada is known for, and in this case we used Group of 7 paintings, are at risk from infrastructure development. And this was an energy pipeline that was since then has been canceled because there was enough public outcry that it didn't go forward. Next slide, Katie. This is also a positive example on how local communities have used their voices to pressure government on policy. The people of Thunder Bay, Northern Ontario, rejected that pipeline that earlier poster was just for. And then Indigenous people too have been praying on the land and with the water for many years. And some of us Canadians are learning how to be a part of their ceremonies and quietly learn from them. I don't know if I have one more slide. Okay, that's all. So when I started as a Laudato Si animator, I started first within my own parish. I used the tools from the GCCM and developed that slide deck of a synopsis of Laudato Si, and then I began speaking with my own parish, with the Catholic Women's League and to other groups. That grew then from there, and what I found is that the work is easier when you find like-minded partners. If you come up against people who are solidly deniers, don't waste your time trying to change their minds, because that takes an awful lot of energy on your side, and you may not be successful. Go around them and move to people who want to work with you. You'll find better avenues to success. And allow yourself from time to time to feel frustrated and discouraged. Sometimes this can be lonely work, but when times like that happen, plug back into the Global Catholic Climate Movement, and I highly recommend Christina Liano's webinars on meditation. These quiet meditations and prayers will help you reconnect with your place of creation, but also help you focus, find peace and energy that you'll need to continue the work you do. Katie mentioned that there's something exciting happening here in Canada. In development now, there is what will hopefully be a Canadian chapter of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. And the design of that is to help now with your new group of trainees, 75 Canadian animators, to find resources that have been developed within Canada and to connect those resources to the animators and to lay people across the country who are looking for good, solid resource material around Laudato Si. So that's kind of exciting. We've got a strong team in our advisory circle. We're in the phase of looking for funding now, and I hope that maybe by early summer I'll be able to reach out to all of you and say, yay, we're ready to go, and I can be a support for you. So that's a brief synopsis of what I've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Agnes. This is extremely helpful. I think folks have put some questions into the chat. If you could continue to do that, we'll have some time at the end for questions for both speakers, but I want to make sure we have plenty of time for both speakers to present. So we'll move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Světla, and I would hate to ruin your beautiful last name, Jarošova.
Well, that used to be my name. Hanke.
Oh.
Now, Hanke.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and a little bit about our speaker. She's a Laudato Si circle leader in Prague. She lives and serves in Prague, and she holds a master's degree in theology, working towards a doctoral dissertation. It's very impressive. She has served as a teacher in various positions, and she is now a mother of 2 young children, hoping for a third. So thank you so much for joining us. And you have your own slides to share, right? So I can transfer this to you, correct?
Yes. Is this working? Are you seeing my screen?
I don't think it's sharing yet, no. If you don't mind hitting the share button again, that would be great. Maybe it was still on mine.
Screen? No. Yes?
Yep. Now we're...
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. I would like to begin by thanking all of you present for getting engaged in this beautiful project of bringing the Laudato Si message to life in your communities. I have actually, I did not actually take part in the animated training program. I only learned about global Catholic climate movement late last summer. I am engaged with anti-coal activists in the Czech Republic, where I live, and they are all like Marxist or secular people, let's say. But last summer they told me that there is something called the Global Catholic Climate Movement, and that since I'm Catholic, I might like to learn about them. So I did, and I wanted to take part in the animators training program, but it was already too late in the season. So I just went about setting up a Laudato Si circle, and now I've been holding sessions of the Prague circle for half a year, since October. And so I would like to talk about bringing the Laudato Si message to life in the communities. Marisa asked me to speak about the challenges I have come across and about the ways that I have been able to overcome them. And I think the challenge that most of us are probably meeting in our communities is the lack of interest. Agnes said that it is not advisable to try to persuade deniers, but my experience is that there is a large majority of people who are not climate change deniers, but they do not have any particular interest in what's going on either. They hear in the news that somewhere, some tens or hundreds of kilometers away, people are suffering due to climate change, but it does not affect their immediate problems. Here in Prague, we are not a frontline community. Where people live near a coal mining area, they are more interested. But in the city where people are not immediately threatened, they are not worried, and they are not very eager to get engaged. And that is a challenge for someone who wants to bring the message. I chose the introductory quotation by Saint Seraphim of Sarov, who was an Orthodox, Russian Orthodox saint, who is reported to have said, "Acquire internal peace, and thousands around you will be saved." Now, how does that connect to the Laudato Si message? The encyclical is not only about climate change, about poverty, about alleviating and making easier the impacts of climate change on poor people. It also offers a kind of spirituality, which I think it is important to try to bring to life in local communities. And it is a spirituality of peace. On the screen now, you should be seeing a quotation, a more extensive quotation from the encyclical, which speaks about the spirituality of peace and how it is related to ecology. I will pause for a moment to let you take the quotation in. And I will now go on and try to elaborate as to how that relates to the challenge of encountering the people who show little interest in climate change and how that affects the planet. The spirituality of the Laudato Si encyclical is the spirituality of peace. And if you as an animator, if you as a leader of a Laudato Si circle want to bring that to life in your community, you must work on acquiring that peace in yourself. Once your heart is at peace, you are a living specimen of the spirituality of peace that the Laudato Si encyclical offers. When you try and go about and find like-minded partners, and as Agnes has said, then you will be lucky to find them, or maybe you will not be lucky to find them. And if you can't come across any people who are willing to cooperate with you, then perhaps it's because you are not ready to get involved. You are not ready to guide people to peace. So the way to go about, I think, to go about bringing the message of peace, the spirituality of peace to life in the community, and gradually to get people interested in how climate change is affecting the lives of other people, is by starting with the Lord. Not starting with climate change, but starting with the Lord and saying, look, Lord, at us, attende Domine, et miserere, and have pity on us. It is now Lent, so it is the proper time to say, please, Lord, look down on us and have pity on us. And once you have done that, you share the burden of bringing the message that you think is important with the Lord, and the Lord will be acting, not you. If you lack like-minded partners, as I did for a long time in the Catholic community of Prague, you need to find a like-minded partner that you can discover the God present in the world that you are living, and leave the trouble of bringing the Laudato Si message alive in your community up to him. He is present here and he wants you to animate the community, but the community is his work and you are also his work. Right. I had a lot of trouble getting the parish priest where I live even talk to me about inviting people. One thing is that one way is to find people yourself by networking, and what I wanted to do is just invite people from the parish by parish announcement, and I spent several months trying to persuade the priest just to let the announcement be made, but it went through. We started meeting, the people came unexpectedly, and we now meet twice a week, once in the children's room where everyone feels comfortable, as you can see the pictures, and the other time in the parish hall where we have slides and films and stuff like that. It's a lot to prepare for the person who is engaged in that. Global Catholic Climate Movement recommends that Laudato Si circles share vegan meals at their meetings. I have found that sharing a vegan meal requires a level of commitment that is not present in the group that I have been able to form. It requires a lot of time and a lot of privacy, so we just meet and pray and talk about the encyclical, which is standing in the middle of the table. I think while it is true that people are interested in things close to home, like Agnes said, that we should point out things that are close to home, I think a Laudato Si animator needs to have a wide heart open for those who are far away, for those who are not able to experience peace. So these Syrian children are an example of those for whom we can pray in the circle. These indigenous Americans fighting against the pipeline is another example of someone who, for us in Prague, is very far away physically, but still it is someone that the heart is open to. I struggle with the different language that I have. Global Catholic Climate Movement offers many resources, but they are in English and they are not easy to use, so I must make my resources myself. You will find the same in Poland and other countries where you are from. I have found a very useful technique of setting up a Facebook profile or page, and then I make slides of the hints that Global Catholic Climate Movement sends in English. For example, this is that you can see now is the encyclical quotation from March. It was about translating the the ecological awareness into new habits. So I take a picture which accompanies the quotation and the translated quotation, and I put it up on Facebook, and people around the country that I have never met see it and they like it or not. So that is a way to do it, a way to bring the message to life. Setting up the circle was difficult, but once I have been able to do it, it is a beautiful experience. When the group has started meeting regularly, we have discovered over the 6 or 7 months that we've been together that we came together because we were concerned, or they were concerned, about the lack of rain. 2 of the people who go there, or 3, are most concerned about the lack of rain. So they thought this would be a prayer activity for the rain. And we have discovered that we are becoming a new entity, that each one of us is becoming something more beautiful than we could individually be. So the trouble with setting the circle up and with preparing the presentations was worth it. I'm very happy that I've been able to do it. And I wish you people, the peace of mind that is needed to do it yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Světla, and thank you again, Agnes. We'll now turn it over to questions. So if you would please write your questions in the chat box, then we can go through those. If we want to, we can go through next steps so that for maybe perhaps, oh, here's one. So I see from David, would the term pro-earth be effective in communication?
I think it would. I have found that saying the words climate change can be very politically charged, and sometimes Catholics tell me that politics doesn't belong in church. I have a little trouble with that from a social justice point of view. That I think is something that we're called to do. But instead, I've tried to use words like creation care, stewardship of the earth, words that are traditional in Catholic social teachings are sometimes more acceptable than words that are in the media and in politics.
Great.
Can I? Or
Yes, please.
someone, Angela or Angel, I'm not sure, asks what is the best approach for raising an issue with the parish priest. I recommend praying in advance. You know, you need to know the person, and you need to pray first for an opportunity, for a beautiful opportunity where you can encounter him and talk to him in a way that he can understand. You need to begin with a humble prayer. You cannot just walk up and start a technique. You need to pray first.
Let's see. How do you enthuse people who do care but sense no urgency?
For me, that's the time when I talk about the United Nations IPCC reports. The most recent one was filled with urgency from the scientific community when they publicly recognized that the expectations that they had documented up until last fall are happening much sooner and at a much greater impact than they had expected. And I pass that urgency along. I'm lucky in the location that I'm in that there are a number of groups that are actively engaged in climate activism. So there is opportunity to share from several different points of view what the urgency would be. And then, of course, you know, outdoor, he says that watching the evening news is like walking through Revelations. So that is a rather scary, but certainly urgent feeling when you look at the world that way.
Then we have, what would be a good media term?
In North America, there are people that are talking about climate emergency now. That certainly heightens the urgency. There are several cities in Canada that have declared recognition of a climate emergency, 4 or 5 so far, and that is being picked up by the media here. I don't know about in other places.
The next, it looks like, has anyone tried to deliver a Laudato Si circle via Zoom?
I think, I haven't. And I think that a Laudato Si circle is a community action that needs a personal touch. Via Zoom, you can exchange ideas, but I doubt that you can get intimate. Maybe you can, but once in a while, people need to get together close enough to be able to hold hands. Maybe.
Great. There's a question. Do the two panelists network with non-Catholic and secular groups as Pope Francis addresses Laudato Si to all the people of the world?
Well, Agnes said that she works with 350, and I started with the Czech equivalent.
I was also very lucky to attend the Parliament of World Religions in Toronto last November. What an incredible expanding experience that was, because it is immediately, in a situation like that, it becomes real to you that every faith community and every tradition around the world speaks to our place in creation and our responsibility to live with it and to um, interact with each other equally to protect it. That's not absent from any faith tradition. So recognizing that similarity opens up all kinds of opportunities for working together in a spiritual way to protect the earth. It was wonderful.
Great. Then we have Dennis here in the heart of MAGA country. So MAGA being Make America Great Again, President Trump's slogan. Folks don't even believe the science. How do you suggest we approach that?
Can I think Laudato Si, the encyclical, is not about climate science. Climate science is an important part of the message, but the message that Pope Francis is giving us is that all that is interconnected. All that there is, human beings, plants, animals, stones, the stars, we're all interconnected. And that is something that we have lost a sense of, and we are now invited to acquire that sense of wholeness and integrity with creation again. There are many people who are not interested in the climate science facts, but you can still serve them by bringing your own heart to a higher level of connectedness. And if you work on the inner peace of yourself, you thereby enhance the world. So again, I think that the work needs to start in the heart of the animator, who can get more connected. And once you get more connected, you will discover that the people around you are getting connected too.
I have a friend who uses humor in his presentations. He's someone who's trained with the Agile Planet Reality Project. And he uses humor with a tongue-in-cheek to get, comedians are often able to say very blunt things that make you think twice about yourself and how you look at the world. And sometimes humor is a very powerful tool. That might help. There's some really good cartoons available that can be added into a PowerPoint that will illustrate that kind of thing. The other thing is moving the world better in any way is never a wasted effort. So if avoiding the science is what some people want to do, then maybe address smaller individual issues like equity for housing and equity for people who maybe in the United States have been the hardest affected by hurricanes on the coast. Those are conversations you can have without having to address the science, and they will advance policy in a positive way.
Great, excellent. Thank you both. So just with the remaining time, I want to make sure that we are able to address next steps. And so if I could ask, if possible, Agnes and Světla, if you could, looks like Světla, you're doing this already, answer some of these questions in the chat box while we go to next steps. And I can also make sure I take down these questions and have Marissa get in touch with those who we are not able to get to their questions right now on the call. I want to make sure we get to this, but we'll try to, if we can circle back to these two, we can do that as well. So just to So then in terms of next steps and updates, join Thinkific. And the website there is, as you can see, gccm.thinkific.com. We also, a little bit about some other campaigns that we have at this moment. We have our Earth Day campaign, which is inviting participants to plant trees and ask participants to go to their to government to meet their to make sure that their government is meeting their Paris commitments to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees. So not only is it tree planting, but also advocacy. Also, the climate strikes, as some of you may have heard, the next global climate strike is on May 24th, which also is the anniversary of Laudato Si. So we'll be working together towards a strong climate presence on that day. So be sure to keep an eye out for any additional information there. Another note is that people can get the certificate, Laudato Si certificate for the program they need, but the piece to do that is to host a final event in your community. So if you have questions about that, please do connect with Marissa. We also have Alexandra on the call who can be of a resource to you as well. Both Marissa and Alexandra's email addresses end with @CatholicClimateMovement.global. Marissa has her name, so it's just Marissa @CatholicClimateMovement.global, and Alexandra's is animators@CatholicClimateMovement.global. We'll also have, there'll be an animator and chapter call on Wednesday, April 4th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with all chapter leaders and other animators to discuss these upcoming campaigns and share best practices and help each other through these challenges. So make sure to register for that. You can also join Laudato Si circles if you're not a part of one already. So this is a great next step. The Laudato Si circles are small prayer groups focused on spirituality, ecological conversion, and uniting them with action. The Laudato Si chapters, just to give you an understanding of the difference, are more focused on community action and advocacy. Or they take part in volunteer activities such as research and writing. For more information about the Laudato Si circles, you can, as you see here on this slide, you can contact Jennifer at jennifer@catholicClimateMovement.global. And for the GCCM chapters or volunteer opportunities to do research, policy work, or writing, you can contact Marissa at CatholicClimateMovement.global. And as mentioned before, Marissa is a fantastic resource and a go-to if you're not sure to who to contact. We'll also be sending this information out to everyone via email, so please be sure to keep an eye out for that. And then just as we're wrapping up, a warm thank you to our presenters today. I think they gave everyone, I was reading the comments and we didn't have a moment to read them out loud, but it was great to see that so many people expressed how helpful this presentation was to them and how it has inspired them for their work in their community. So thank you very much for that. It does look like we actually will have a couple minutes, so we were able to get through some of those announcements so rather quickly. So perhaps we go to the chat and see if there's anything else before we end our call for today. So thank you everyone for your wonderful notes to our presenters and your appreciation. Let's see, are there any ones we haven't addressed yet? It looks like Svetla and Agnes, you've been responding very well to these. I see a note, I'm leading a Live Laudato Si retreat in DC on June 8th. Has anyone done any retreats or days of prayer on Laudato Si? GCCM does Laudato Si retreats. We host those. Our colleague Christina is actually our lead on those, so we can be a resource to folks if those on this call aren't aware of that opportunity. Retreats can be anywhere from a couple hours to multi-days to a week. We can really customize it for any group, any size. And I see someone else ask, can GCCM share resources for anyone to put together retreats and days of prayer? We can certainly make sure that we send out that information to everyone as well, because you do have some wonderful documentation on that. Any other questions? As we have a couple minutes to spare. We are getting parishioners to send letters to the Brazilian consulate about preserving the Amazon rainforest. Wonderful, that's great to hear. I'm not sure if there was a question there. Wonderful. Well, if there are no other questions, I'd like to thank our speakers again, Agnes and Svetla. It's been wonderful having you on this call. It's very helpful to our participants to hear your great stories. So thank you very much for taking the time today. And as mentioned before, everyone, if you have any lingering questions after this call, please be sure to contact Marissa at catholicClimateMovement.global. And also please keep an eye out for any additional information regarding Earth Day or any other upcoming events such as our climate strike. And for those, since we have an extra moment, for those who want to see the Earth Day site, I will share that with you. Here is our site. It is at CatholicClimateMovement.global /Earth Day /Earth/Day/2019. And you can see it here instead of hearing me attempt to read it. So please do take a moment to visit the site, and we hope that you will join us on this day. So that concludes our call for the day. I want to just thank everyone again, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Katie, will we have a chance to continue answering